Steph, how is it possible for so many men to build great things, business, physique, stature, but yet behind closed doors still be wrestling with themselves and feel so disconnected in their relationships?
Two things. Shame is prevalent in pretty much all of us, and we want to run and hide from shame as hard and as fast as we can. The greater the pain that we're harboring, hiding, and running from, the greater the pleasure we require. There is a lot of pleasure that is found in building successful businesses. There's a lot of accolade that comes with that. There's a lot of validation and acceptance from the outside world. We feel better. That's a very convenient distraction to feel better from the pain and the shame that we're harboring. I'll pause there. There's more to that, but I'll pause there.
Yeah, no, I think that in of itself will trigger, I think, a lot of men out there, right? Like, you're going to tell me I've built this amazing life and I'm wrestling with shame.
Fear, pain, shame, repressed. You can call it trauma. I don't like to. I don't mind using the word, but it's a buzzword. But it's more repressed and suppressed intensity that the nervous system and the psychology experience usually at a young age. Doesn't know what to do with it, compartmentalizes it, suppresses and represses it, literally pushes it down. It's one of our coping strategies as humans, pushes it away from our awareness and our consciousness. But we still feel it. It still drives our patterns, our habits, our behaviors, the way we see ourselves, the way we see the world, our worldviews, our values even. And so there's like an itch, but the itch is really deep. We don't know it's there and we don't know what to do with it. And so we have to, again, put pleasure. Sometimes pleasure is, let me go drink myself silly. Let me go have lots of wild sex. Pornography. Let me go travel the world. There's nothing wrong with these. There's nothing wrong with traveling. There's nothing wrong with building a successful business. There's nothing wrong with having a glass of wine or anything like that. But when the come from really matters, and when things are done in intensity and extremity that matches the same energetic signature of the intensity that you're running from or that you're unable to face, that becomes quote unquote a problem. That becomes the pain that you're running from. And the more you do that, the more pleasure you need, right? But the thing is, the more unfulfilled you actually feel because the come from, the fuel source isn't sustainable.
What are the biggest pains that guys are running from? And is there a correlation between that driver of pain and what they seek for pleasure? For example, like, do certain pains tend to lead to pleasure in the physical? Do certain pains tend to lead towards maybe alcoholism? Do certain pleasures tend to lead towards even workaholism as a source of pleasure? So what are the main drivers of pain that our men are wrestling with? And is there a correlation between the pain and then what they seek pleasure-wise?
Yeah, so not being enough, not feeling enough is a driver of seeking pleasure or running from that pain. So maybe there's been physical violence in their lives. Not everything happens in the context of childhood or our teenage years, and during our formative years when we're exposed to hardship, it imprints upon us. It imprints upon our physiology and imprints upon our psychology and our self-worth. And so a lot of these causes of this pain is I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not physically adept enough. I'm unwanted. I am unworthy. I have experienced rejection and humiliation, and I don't know what to do with that pain. So there's some of the causes of that. Again, like violence, maybe growing up in violence, growing up in a household that was split. So divorce can really do that, where there's an absent father. And even an absent mother. In fact, one of the things that very few people speak to when it comes to men is the relationship those men had with their mother and with the feminine as boys. And for many men, there is an enmeshment, an emotional incest, an entanglement, where there is rupture in the relationship between mum and dad. Mum unconsciously projects her emotional and psychological and relational needs on that little boy. And it's very confusing for that little boy. And it produces a lot of, I'm mum's hero, I can be a hero, but also ickiness as that boy gets older. Because, and I don't mean to be rude here, but no boy wants to fuck their mum. And no mother actually wants to fuck their boy. But when there's that emotional entanglement there, it causes these very uncomfortable feelings. And it's this push pull with the feminine, because that mother is the first experience of the core feminine in that boy's life. And then he imprints that experience onto the women that he's with. So what that often does is that impacts closeness, that impacts true intimacy and vulnerability and being seen and being honest in relationship as an adult man. Then you asked about, correlative pleasures. For example, that kind of guy, casual relationships, porn addiction, high octane sex has to be peak pleasure. So in other words, casual flings, one night stands, can't really be in a committed relationship, struggles with commitment. So his pleasure vortex is, let me just have novelty and variety, as much sex as possible with as many women as possible. Pornography is often part of that challenge. Right. And that's a big one that many people don't speak to. And it's also, I say the word emotional incest. Let me be very clear. Yes, there is obviously physical incest and molestation. I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about those emotional needs, like, oh, you're mummy's little boy. You're going to be mummy's little prince always. Then that boy grows up and he needs the approval of his mother for all the girlfriends that he has. Like, it's that kind of affliction. It causes distress and anger. That man then usually projects that anger onto women. He has like a hatred for women, but he doesn't, but he does, but he doesn't, but he does. And he's super confused. And the way he treats women and he treats himself. And so there's always distance there. So he wants an intimate relationship because it's something that we all crave, to be close to others, but he can't sustain it. And so he doesn't know what's going on. He can't blame himself completely because he doesn't understand it. So it's obvious and easy just to blame the girl. Well, if she did this, I would be okay. If she showed up differently, if she wasn't so needy, if she just liked doing sex the way I like doing sex, and the list goes on. Make sense?
100%. And the piece with the relationship with the mother, I saw this for the first time probably 3.5, 4 years ago, specifically with a client that I was working with. This was a young, driven, on the come up, successful man. He was 26, 27 years old at the time, was building a trucking company. So to reserve cash flow, he was still living at home. He was raised by a single mother and he was wise and smart, but he realized that his mom was very powerful and demanding and very authoritarian in her relationship. He always had a conflict in the relationship with his mom. And he would find some success and then he would catch himself acting out, and his drug of choice was kind of a violent style of porn. And it was a way for him to have control over women because he never had control over his mother.
Correct. Because she never had control over her husband, and she tried to probably apply that control to him. And so he was suppressed in that way. He was oppressed.
And we came through this, I mean, probably 3-4 months into our working relationship. And I was like, I know this is not what you hired me for, but you're never going to break free while you're still living under mom's roof. He made the commitment, broke out within 18 months, like 4X'd his business, found an incredible relationship, engaged, married now, like has radically just ascended his life. But it was that key thread, key piece there. They always say it's like, it's a mom's job to take an infant and turn him into a boy. And then it's a dad's responsibility to take a boy and turn him into a man. And I know you study, classical tribes. It's like, this was an initiation at 13, 14 years old to become a man. The men of the village would take the boy away from the women and go off into the woods or go do something that was required hard, discipline, masculine frame. So I connect 100% with it because we've seen it in the flesh, in real life, working with men. How can a guy, getting back to like the shame being the driver of this pleasure seeking behaviors, like a guy checked a lot of the boxes physically from the outside, people respect him, status, he's got all the boxes checked. What are some signs for somebody like this to look for that, hey, like there's something emotional disconnected here that's driving some of my behaviors?
Yeah, superficial surface level relationships. Doesn't really have close friends, close peers in his life. Is constantly looking for the next thing. So is really tantalized by novelty and variety. Inability to stay still, is quite restless physically and just even in the commitments that he makes in his everyday life. There's some examples of that man that, feels insecure, or is hiding shame. Um, moving around a lot. So focusing here, maybe business, and then focusing on travel, and then focusing on the next big project. And this is all correlated to the can't stay still, needs novelty and variety, but is constantly seeking distraction in his life to pull him away from facing the shame. Inability to actually be emotive. So can really only access maybe two emotions, happiness, because again, he's being tantalized by the excitement, the novelty, the variety, or maybe anger and frustration. That's basically it. There's an inability to be with grief. There's an inability to be with sadness. There's an inability to be also self-reflective. When people are carrying a lot of shame, their self-awareness is often minimized, because the more self-aware you are, the more you come into deeper contact with yourself and all the parts of you that live within you. And if the ego and the personality is attempting to avoid coming face to face with that really deep, painful shame, people lack self-awareness. They don't practice self-awareness, right? So he can be quite it's not obvious to him his actions in the world. He doesn't really see how he affects other people. He may actually be really empathetic, but masks his empathy, or pushes that down as well. So his social skills could be a little awkward too. Again, I'm talking specifically about, successful people. And then there can be an arrogance as well. Arrogance, once again, being egotistical, that masks that shame. It's a compensation. So if you're seeing extremes in behavior like that, extremes in ego, extremes in vanity, extremes in self-assuredness, usually there's some shame and some deep insecurity that's being masked.
I think it's interesting because a lot of times in this conversation, I think the successful guy that is driven and wants to build, and once again, like, we're not saying there's anything wrong with going out there and achieving and building, like, go do it all. Like, there's, just like you, I have incredible goals and I want to accomplish big and amazing things. I had to go through a journey of healing in my own life because I was driven by anger in my 20s. And that led me down the path of success, destruction, success, destruction, success, destruction, time and time and time. Again, I finally at a place now where it's like the success is coming and like I can be at peace knowing that I want more. Ed Milet calls it blissful dissatisfaction, right? How can a guy, or how do you, you work with a lot of successful high performance men here as well, maintain that drive and push, still wanting more, but begin to get emotionally connected and healing of whatever it is that's driving them?
Yeah. Yeah. The paradox is you got to let it go. The paradox is you've got to give up your desire to be successful and to even experience quote unquote success. You got to sort of burn the bridges. And that's the paradox though, because in that process, in that journey of burning it all, and I don't mean, let me be very clear. Don't burn your house down, burn the bridges to your old. In other words, don't be self-destructive and chaotic and just destroy everything in people's lives and your business and all of that. No, 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 no. I'm talking about the process. You're burning the pattern of attachment that you have that defines your worthiness and defines your aptitude and your reason for validating your breath and your life as success. You got to burn that pattern that's associated with that. Like, I'm only going to be worthy if I'm successful. Look at me, daddy, unconsciously. Look at me, daddy, approve of me. Look how much money I have. Look all the good things I'm doing. You got to burn that. That's what you got to burn. And the fear is people don't want to do that. Men don't want to do that because the fear is, well, if I burn that, then I'll burn my success. Then I actually will burn everything down. No, you won't. What will happen is your come from will shift. You'll have more energy. You'll have more clarity. You'll access more creativity. You may come to a place in your life and say, I actually don't want to keep fighting so hard. And I've actually got all the success I need and want. But if you do come from that place, you'll do it rationally. You'll do it from a place of genuine care for yourself and for others and genuine desire. It won't be anything that's forced. So the thing you think you don't want to let go of, you happily let go of. because it just won't be important to you anymore. You won't value it. Or you'll continue to build, but you build, again, like I said, from a very different place. More creativity, more clarity, more enthusiasm, more inspiration, more passion. And not just more, actually deeper, like more authentic. But the paradox is you've got, or the catch is you've got to burn that pattern. You've got to be willing to go to very uncomfortable places and say, I will no longer be defined by my actions. It's not about how much I do or even the quality of my doing. It's actually about the quality of my being. And for many men, that's really difficult because it has been kicked and punched into them that they're only going to be valuable if they do A, B, or C. And so all of their worth is predicated upon their contribution. Now, again, let me be very clear. I think who's a very prolific author in the space of masculinity, Jack Donovan, speaks about this. He speaks about contribution. He speaks about men being defined by the skill sets that they brought into their tribes, what they contributed, their usefulness, their utility. I think that still lives in us, but our social systems are far more complex now. Our brains are also more complex too. Consciousness is different to what it was, I think, 2-3 million years ago as hominoids, right? So where these patterns, these social and individual patterns were established, tribal patterns, if you like, how we work and function as groups, as relational beings. And so with that said, we need some different approaches. So I want to go back to your original question still and just add another thing to this, another layer to this, is while we're burning the bridges to those old patterns, it's important that we're more relational. In other words, we join groups like yours. We hire coaches, therapists, counselors, etc. We join men's groups. We form our own. We allow ourselves to be accountable and be witnessed in our vulnerability, in our realness, in our fears, in our pains, in the stuff that we're trying to access. We give people permission to hold us accountable and ask us powerful questions to get to the core of who we are. And we're witnessed in our grief and our pain and our anger and our sadness and all of our shit. That shame thrives in the darkness. We have to bring shame into the open, not behind closed doors. And so it's not just it's a multi-pronged approach to actually being with ourselves and making these habit changes and learning to not be successful from a place of compensation or deficit or fear or pain, but learning to be successful from a place of passion and inspiration and cleanliness, like a clear psychological channel within ourselves. And all of that is very possible. But for me, it begins with being willing to break and burn that pattern that has got you here. What got you here will not get you there. That old saying. That's really a big part of it.
Steph, I grew up a fat, overweight kid. I remember still to this day, a vivid experience that I had at 14 years old. It was a summer, was at my cousin's, spending a couple weeks there. He lived Miami area. So it was sunny. We're hanging out by the pool. He's a year older than me. So you think a 14-year-old boy hanging out with a 15-year-old boy during the summer at a pool, what's around there? 15-year-old girls. And I remember this experience because it left an imprint on me that stuck with me for 20 plus years. I got shamed because I was overweight and I didn't feel comfortable taking my shirt off. That lit a fuel inside of me, but a fuel of anger. And I carried that with me for 20 years into bodybuilding, into becoming the strongest physical person. Every room I stepped into, I was like, if I could just be the biggest, strongest person, I can never be hurt. There was that child inside of me. I had a radical experience, encounter with God, submission to my life, surrender full. I broke my hand in 2019. I sat in a doctor's office and he's like, you cannot work out. Do not go to the gym for a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks. I took that for 8 months and walked out of the gym and left my entire life behind me. I lost 40 pounds. But what I realized through that journey, because this is really when I went the beginning of my own internal work, is I had to begin to love myself first for who I was, not what I had built. Now, I put a lot of that strength back on because I love training. I was gifted with the ability to do it, but it's at a place now where like I can enjoy and use it for what it is, not a place of like a shield, a destruction. So there's an element of this conversation that is like bringing me back to the journey that I went on. So I want to know the guys, you can still have all the things that you want and you currently have, just you got to come from a place of those things aren't going to define your success, aren't going to define your emotional state. Be happy with who you are first, and the rest will come later on.
Yeah, and one a beautiful story, man. I appreciate you sharing that, and I can relate. I have a very similar story as well, just being quite overweight, being younger. Um, what stood out for me with what you said was around the self-worth, self-love piece. When you value yourself for the intrinsic nature of your breath and your being, right? That place, to live from that place is the most unstoppable, powerful place to live from. We think, we believe, a very misconstrued way, that compensation is powerful. And look, it's not that it's not, it's just not as powerful as a purity of love. It just isn't. And we have to often, fortunately or unfortunately, I think it's just where we are at the sort of level of consciousness as a humanity. We have to go through those hard times and we have to break and then compensate from that place, then to realize 10, 20, 30, 40 years later, damn, didn't have to do it like that. But better late than never. And that I really believe in that saying.
Well, I think there's an interesting question there, right? Because is this journey necessary for the awakening, right? Can you become conscious and awake without having gone through some of this internal wrestle? Like, would I be standing here today having this conversation with you if I hadn't wrestled with that journey of anger, going through the pain, experiencing it, living it out, running my head up against the wall, getting pushed back? Like, would I be able to do everything that I'm doing here today if I hadn't gone through that journey? What part of this journey is necessary for that conscious awakening?
All of it. And that was exactly what I said earlier. I think it's a great question. I've been wrestling with this question for years. And the place that I arrive at is the collective consciousness of our maturity as a humanity only allows us really to grow meaningfully through hardship or through rock bottom. Whether that rock bottom is a one-off event or last 30, 40 years, right? Through compensation, through pain, through fear. Now, I believe, though, that's not the only way to actually grow. It's just where we're at as a maturation of our own humanity, of our own consciousness. I believe eventually that shifts and changes, and we don't need as much of rock bottom. We don't need as much pain to actually change. We don't need to lose so much to say, "Oh, damn, wish I'd been different. Didn't want to lose her, or didn't want to." That's just where we're at. And I just think that's just part of our maturation process. And this the thing, like, I don't see the rock bottom as bad thing. I see it as undesirable. Doesn't mean that it's bad. For example, right? Very simple terms. If I handed you $100 million, a briefcase with $100 million in it, my guess is that you would be happy and that would be desirable. My guess. Like, you wouldn't say no, no strings attached, no catches, tax free, take it. And you say, my guess is you'd be pretty happy. Cool. In the world we live in, this is useful. $1 billion, whatever it is, right? But if I gave you a suitcase full of grief and despair and loss and all of that, now I don't know you super well, Frank, but what I will say is that my guess is that you would embrace that if that was what life was giving to you. However, my guess is also, it's like, it's not the most desirable thing. It's undesirable, but I'll fucking take it because I know where this can take me, right? That's a distinction. That's it. It's just undesirable. So to me, I look at that and think, okay, well, what do I make desirable, undesirable mean? I just make it mean that there's learning and growth in all of it. And if I can sit more in the desirable, not because I want to avoid the undesirable, because I want to welcome that just like that. And again, another paradox. I want to welcome the undesirable in my life if it comes to me, just like I welcome the desirable, because it is an equal part of life. And this is the big challenge, the big issue that we make is, and why we go to porn and why we go to addiction and why we go to all the other places that are deep, deep pleasure, peak pleasure, is because we're not embracing the undesirable. The thing is, the undesirable is just, it's not very sustainable. And so we've got to take the lessons. We've got to pay attention. How do we take the lessons? We pay attention. We focus. We say, okay, I'm going to bring this into my life. This is what has been given to me. Acceptance, surrender. Like you surrendered a few years ago when you walked out on your life, essentially, on what you thought your life was, your identity. You burnt it. You burnt the bridges, the patterns, the way you were relating to life. So when we can accept that, and it's not, that doesn't make us fight less or be a stand for ourselves less or be complacent. It doesn't do that. It can, if that's the type of person you want to be, but surrendering and accepting doesn't do that by default. It actually gives us a gateway. It opens up doors in our lives, opportunities. And so if we can do that, then we naturally just move out of the undesirable and we start to get clarity on where we want our lives to be. And the energetic system that we run within us, emotional, relational, psychological, spiritual, physical, the fuel source is very different. Now, instead of putting water in a vehicle that requires diesel fuel, you're putting diesel in there. You're going to be more optimal. You're going to be more optimized in every area of your life. And so that's the invitation. The invitation is embrace it all and know that you don't have to keep suffering. It will give you something for a period of time, but then move on, move away from it. Move, not in avoidance, move through it. Move away by moving through. But the only way you can move through is by embracing all of it.
You said earlier, we must grow in our self-awareness. You know, once again, speaking to these successful guys, many of them, they're going to be aware in a lot of areas. They're going to be aware of what it needs to take to scale an organization. They're hyper aware, hyper focused there. When it comes to the self-awareness that is necessary from a tactical kind of framework layout, like what are steps for someone to take to begin to grow in their self-awareness?
So at the end of every day, two things. At the beginning of every day, set one intention with respect to, maybe even to really keep it simple, what's one word that's going to define your day for the day? One word that sets your intention, that defines your day, defines what you experience, the core experience in your day. Is it action? Is it belongingness? Is it achievement? Is it happiness? Is it connection? Whatever, right? Do that in the morning. And that's really more, we're speaking to more a focus on the relational field around you. So the relationships in your life, how you want to be, the inner experience you want to have, the dominant thought process you want during the day, in that day. It's really oriented around that. It can be oriented around, okay, I want to sell $1 million worth of this today. Sure, but it's less about that and keep it more relational, because I think for most successful business owners, they've harnessed that. That's honed in, right? I'm not saying you can't get better. You absolutely can, but we're trying to work areas of our lives that require more attention, more self-awareness. Now, at the end of every day, spend 5 or 10 minutes either writing or speaking into your phone, so you're recording it, or talking into a mirror. There's various ways to do it, or just talking out loud and sitting on the couch having a cigar or whatever you're doing, right? But spend a few minutes reflecting on your day. What did you do well? Today, what I did well was, and try and get out of the business side of things. Again, keep it relational, keep it emotional. What I could have done better today was, maybe you had an argument with your COO or something, and you said something that you regretted. Speak to that, write to that. What did you say? What could you have said differently? Why did you say it? Where did it come from within you? What were you threatened by that you didn't let know? Instead of attacking, you could have said, "Hey, John, I'm feeling scared right now, and my fear is A, B, and C, or I'm really angry right now, and here's why I'm angry." How could you have communicated better? What were the dominant thoughts that went through your head? Were you healthy today? Did you work out? Did you look after your body? What was your self-care like today? Like, you're just bringing awareness. What was left unspoken today? Do I have any regrets about the day? Do I have any withholds? Do I have any judgments? Oh, when I was driving on the street, that person was driving slow, and I swerved at them, and I swore at them, and I have judgment towards them. Okay, where are you maybe slow in your life? Or where are you not paying attention? They weren't paying attention. They were on their phone. Where are you not paying attention in your life? Oh, I'm not really around for my kids as much as I'd like to be. Oh, so you're taking it out on that person that's driving, but really you're the one that you're angry at. You're the one that you're frustrated with. So when we practice self-awareness, we get just naturally become more proficient at it. And that is a good structure. It's a very simple structure. You give yourself some stem sentences, which is, finish the sentence. Today, what I did well was, or where I want to improve today is, or the most important conversation I had today was. And even if you're just recapping events, that opens up an opportunity for you to be self-reflective, and you're going in with the intention of, how can I do better? Or what didn't really work well? Or what am I hiding? Or what am I running from? Or my anger today, what is that really about? And over time, man, we just get way more proficient at being self-aware. Now, one more thing I'll say to this. Self-awareness is just one aspect of the growth journey. It's a very important one, but it's not the final step. It's not the most important, meaning that we have to then learn to take action in new ways after that. That's where we now deepen into our relationality, we deepen into our processes, we deepen into seeking support and help.
This is a good, not even transition, but carry on this conversation. Our organization, the coaching work that we do, it's called the Rebuilt Man. We take a man that is winning at life, struggling behind closed doors, got an area that is keeping him in guilt, shame, secrecy. He's an addict to pornography. And the language, the frame that we walk these men through is what we define as an identity transformation. You must become a man that is no longer shackled by these things. So the lens I see everything through is real transformation, emotional awareness, growth, healing is through the lens of identity transformation, becoming this new man. And that's what I'm hearing you say is like, you got to be aware, you got to have like the starting point on the GPS. If I know I'm trying to get to a place down the road, a place on the other side of the town, in order for the GPS to calculate the directions, it's got to know where I am. It sounds like the emotional awareness is us calculating the starting point in the GPS in order to get to the end destination. So once we have the calculated GPS, that emotional awareness, what's that next step in this journey?
Well, the next step is not doing it on your own. That's the next step, right? So once we have self-awareness, it gives us insight into our patterns and our behaviors, insight, right? It may even help us connect some dots to the past, how the past is influencing the present. But often we don't know what to do with that. And it's not because we're stupid or we're dumb or ignorant or we're not spiritually connected enough. It's because it's very close and personal to us. And more often than not, we cannot see the forest for the trees. And so we're also, couple that with, we are relational beings. Man, if we could do most things ourselves, we should do it ourselves. Like, we wouldn't, even in business, very seldom, it's in fact 100% not possible to build a business by yourself. Meaning, even if you say, well, I was in my garage and I built it from my garage and then I got people, well, you had a customer, someone needed to buy your shit, right? That's a relationship. You needed a relationship with someone that you were selling to that needed what you had, service or product, etc. So everything is relational, meaning that, again, you need someone that isn't so emotionally attached and not in your body, that can see things, that can keep you accountable, that have a skill set, that want to challenge you, but equally can hold you with love and compassion and empathy and understanding and non-judgment, right? Because most wounds are relational in nature. They occur in a relational context with other people. And therein they need to be healed in that way. They need to be made whole in that way. So when you're witnessed in your shame and in your anger and the stuff that you're holding back and holding down, and you realize that that person that's witnessing you, your therapist, your coach, a men's group, a container that you're in, your friends, whatever, and they're not judging you. And in fact, they feel closer to you because you're being real and open. That's a game changer for the nervous system. So what I'm saying is you can only get so far by yourself. And what I'm saying in addition to that is you're not meant to figure it out all by yourself. Now, are you meant to be in solitude for certain parts of your journey? 100%. Don't be super codependent all the time. Be interdependent. You don't need someone all the time, but along the way, you will need someone. And it's okay. So many men struggle with this. It's okay to admit or own or say, I need someone. I need help. You know that in your own work, I'm sure. Men come to you when they've probably been, how many, I'm just curious, percentage of men roughly in your community come to you at the very beginning stages of their porn addiction? Like that, like where they're like, oh, I think I've got a bit of an issue, but I'm not really sure, but I just want to see. My guess is, and I mean, I could be completely wrong. I'm happy to be wrong, but my guess is very few. Most of them are like, oh, my wife caught me, or I'm fucking masturbating 15 times a day. Like I'm in extremes. Like my penis hurts. Like, you know, like it's extremes. Like you have to hit the rock bottom or extreme. That's because they partly because they isolate in their pain. They have no relational mirror. Relationships are mirrors. You got no mirror, you can't see. The mirror goes with a torch. Hey, oh, I see that. Oh, I see that in there. Oh, I didn't even know that was there. I didn't know that was there. I can't see that. But you can see it because your vantage point's over here. We're missing that. So that's why awareness only gets us so far. And I want us to jump to relationality, healthy relational people in our lives as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you're spot on with your assessment. It's always the case where I've tried this for 15 years. I've sat in isolation. I've tried the willpower discipline. I've even gone as far as making my wife my accountability partner, and that just creates more disconnection because there's an emotion. That's puts her in the role of being your mother now, right? And now you're angry with her. She loses respect for you. That's a whole different conversation. I'm sure you and I could explore there. I think on the relationship side of things, sometimes men keep relationships in their life because they allow them to stay a lesser version of themselves. They're hard charging, winning in business, and then they got the guys that they drink with on Friday and Saturday night. They're going out to the strip club. Speak to you mentioned it, but just the importance and how can a guy evaluate, are these relationships actually serving me in the areas that I'm trying to grow?
Yeah. So this is why where self-awareness is really important, because you can't ask that question unless you have self-awareness. So unless you have awareness of your life and you take coupled with taking an honest inventory. So there is some onus here on the individual, man. Like as an individual, you got to want to and be willing to be self-aware, and you got to want to and be willing to look at the areas of your life and be honest about, oh, me binge drinking on Friday and Saturday nights and going to strip clubs and hanging out with these guys and smoking cigarettes and feeling like shit Monday when I really want to train and exercise and be healthy and have more vitality, that's probably not good for me. You got to be honest with yourself, because the ego or the personality is going to want to keep us in habits and patterns that keep us safe. It doesn't give a shit about healthy or unhealthy. It cares about safety. Safety is tethered directly to familiarity, whether that's shooting up heroin or watching porn 15 times a day. And the safety is, let me avoid being with the discomfort that lives within me. And so you got to get honest. Like me going to a strip club Friday and Saturday night, or visiting prostitutes, or hanging out and drinking with these guys and doing coke, racking coke in the bathroom, that's actually not me. That's not. And you have the illusion of companionship and kinship, but it's around an addiction. It's around all of you, again, paradoxically, thinking you're connected, but it's actually all around disconnection, because addiction, the root of addiction is disconnection. So you're all disconnecting together in the same place, but you're all fucking disconnected still. You're disconnected from yourselves and you're disconnected from each other. And so if that man, all he knows is that friendship group, of course he doesn't want to lose that, because he thinks, he believes that that's safe. That's real connection. They're my boys. Stop drinking and stop smoking and stop visiting strip clubs without judgment, right? Do it without judgment, and then see if they're still your boys. See if they still love you. You know, I remember Good Will Hunting. You remember that movie, Good Will Hunting? Yeah. So at the end, throughout the whole movie, Ben Affleck's character was pushing Matt Damon's character to get the fuck out of that culture that they were in, that group. That's a real friend. That gives me goosebumps, man. That's friendship. He was kicking him out of the in-group because he knew that was for his own good. Because Matt Damon was in this push-pull, like I want to stay with my friends, but I've got to stay in the hood, or he said, no, you don't. You got to do the things that you're destined to do. Like, go do them. Instead of judging him for being different, he supported him. That's friendship. If your friends do that, they're probably real friends then. If they're like, hey man, I don't feel I'm strong enough to get out of my addiction, but you are. I don't want you here anymore. Not because you're being different to me, but because I love you so much and I care for you so much. I want to see you succeed. Get out. That's very different to, what's wrong with you? You don't want to go see strippers anymore and drink with us and do coke. Oh, there's something wrong with you. Fuck you. You're weird. Let that be information for you. We're using that example, right? But I mean, there's many others. That's just the example we're harped on now.
No, it's a beautiful example. And I mean, the movie parallel there is a beautiful example and picture of it. Steph, I want to transition and talk a little bit about nervous system regulation. I know that's a big topic, and I think it can tie into this conversation. You know, this was something that I think has enabled me to position myself outside of the norm when it comes to helping men with pornography. A lot of the classical programs, organizations, the biblical approach is guilt, shame, sin, right? I saw this from an entirely different lens very early on. I'm like, no, these guys are using it because they're stressed. They're under a lot of pressure in life. And let's be honest, porn is really good in the moment at relieving that and regulating your nervous system. And once I walk guys through this frame, they're like, oh yeah, when I think about the times that I'm using it, it's usually avoiding hard decisions, at a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure, end of month, whatever the case may be, disconnection in home. So it's nervous system regulation. Tie it into this conversation, like how can a guy that's maybe, you know, resonating with the conversation that we're having here become aware or see that a lot of the things that he's either avoiding doing or the behaviors that he's acting in are cues that his nervous system is off? And then we'll maybe get into some tactics.
Yeah. So firstly, I very much resonate and agree with what you're sharing. It's that pain pleasure paradigm, right? When you regulate your nervous system, there is more pleasure in your life. And a regulated nervous system is just naturally being able to access more joy and more pleasure. Even if the means to get there is unsustainable or unhealthy. There's a couple of parts to that. But I think if I understand your question correctly, what I'm understanding is how do we as men realize that we need to regulate our nervous systems, number one, right? And number two, maybe the second part to that is what are healthy, sustainable ways to regulate our nervous systems that are outside of the realm of compulsion and addiction? Okay. So again, we'll go back to what I said earlier around you need to have a willingness and a desire to want to change and experience change in life. It's a disposition that is cultivated and that lives within you. When you have that as a foundation, you can evaluate your life and couple that with honest self-reflection and honest self-inventory. You then are able to say, man, I'm stressed. Now, many men don't want to admit they're overwhelmed or stressed because it perceives as weakness in the world, right? So again, it's shame. So you got to go to places where your shame can be witnessed and not judged, because the more experience you have of your shame not being judged, the more likely you are to release it and move it through your body, and it leaves your body and it leaves your psyche and doesn't live there, doesn't have to control you. But you've got to get around the insecurity of I'm stressed or I'm overwhelmed. That was a tough one for me personally, man. Like, I hated saying I was overwhelmed. Hated saying it. Hated, like literally. If I felt it, I would want to beat myself. You know what I would do when I was overwhelmed? I would go do things that were hard. Like I'd go hit the gym, or I'd go run for 20 kilometers, or I'd just go do stupid things to prove that I wasn't stressed, tired, or overwhelmed. It's crazy. Anyway, so you got to get over that. As men, we've got to get beyond that, right? And so once we get beyond that, we can just be in truth. This is being in truth. I'm overwhelmed. I'm concerned. I'm worried. I'm not going to make payroll this month because we've had a couple of clients that haven't paid on time, and shit, cash flow is an issue right now. In fact, it's been an issue for a couple of months. The industry's this, or I've lost a few people, whatever it is. I'm stressed and I'm not sure what to do about it. Okay, this is truth. Just being the truth of where you're at. Once you're in the truth, now you can access regulation practices that can help you deload and de-stress, down-regulate, which helps you access more creativity, more inspiration, more intellect, more collaboration in your mind with where you can source, you can problem solve far better from a regulated place. So, man, there's a million and one ways to regulate, and everyone's really different. But I mean, there are objective down regulation practices. So, for example, go for a walk in nature, barefoot on the beach. Go jump in the ocean, actually. That's a regulation practice. Go have a warm bath. Lay with a weighted blanket and breathe really slow with long exhales. Do box breathing. I mean, there's thousands of breath techniques that can help you down regulate. Literally just go to ChatGPT or Claude or wherever and just Google and just say, give me 10 down regulating breath practices. It's not, and the reason why I'm purposely not giving you 10 here right now, as long as I don't have them, is because part of the process of self-care is self-responsibility, right? Not to be mistaken for isolation or solitude. Solitude's healthy, that's fine, but not to be mistaken for I've got to do it all on my own, but self-responsibility. Take the action, prioritize it, make it a value in your life. 10, give me 3 breath practices that help me down regulate. That's it. Try them. Try them all. Try one for a week, a few times a day, because usually you want to be, they're usually a few minutes, 1 to 7 minutes, something like that. They're not long. So do that a few times a day. The more you can do it. So it's more volume intermittently during the day, as opposed to let me do an hour of breath work or an hour of breath practice to down regulate, right? Couple of minutes, multiple times a day, better for you in this instance, as you're getting used to it. Observe. Does this help? Is this helpful? No, not really. Let me try another one. Oh, this one's good. Oh, I like this one. Great. Oh, I'm gonna use this breath. This is good. No, I don't like that practice. I'm not going to use that one. So there's many things that you can do. If you're the type of person that is go, 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 and you go to the gym and you're up at 3 a.m. every morning and you hit the gym and you hit the gym hard and it's high intensity and it's heavy strength. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying, oh, don't wake up at 3, wake up at 6 or be lazy or whatever you want. I'm not saying any of that, but just note, okay, that's a lot of yang energy. That's a lot of doing energy. It's a lot of go energy, right? Cool. Maybe I'm going to do some more yin energy. I'm going to just do some stretching in the evenings before yin yoga before I go to sleep, 20 minutes before I go to sleep at night. That might help me sleep a little bit. I mean, just bring more feminine into my life, more receiving into my life. You know, I'm just going to soften a little bit. You know, maybe one of my workouts I'm going to replace with a long yoga session or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, or a walk instead, right? You want to look at your life where you imbalanced, where you skewed. Again, go energy, do energy, active energy, nothing wrong with it. But if that's all you've got in your life, you're probably missing a little bit of rest. So where can you recuperate? Again, plug into nature and just 1 hour, 2 hours, no phones, no devices, no books, nothing. It's another down regulating practice. There's so much you can do that will help you get clearer, problem solve more effectively, get more creative, be more collaborative, be able to help you see the forest for the trees. There's a lot of power in that. But we have to be willing to get uncomfortable and not be defined by our doing and our habits that we're so accustomed to. We've got to get out of that.
One thing I've wanted to ask you for a while here, because I think it's been sprinkled throughout this conversation. If anything, it sits at the bottom of, I think, everything that you talk about and teach, is the role of spiritual connection, a relationship with God plays in a lot of this healing and transformative process. You know, I shared for me that story of the surrender and kind of like having to heal from that brokenness. A lot of that started with being challenged by men spiritually and recognizing I'd always been on a journey of having a relationship with God, but I always pushed away from it due to another identity that I held as a young boy and man of not being raised with any spiritual foundation, any relationship with God. So I always saw people that were spiritual, like outside of me. I was like, I'll just avoid these conversations. But mid-30s, I was challenged. There was a surrender there. It's been the guiding driver of my life ever since. I'm curious with you, like just your relationship with God as you see him and what role you see plays in men that are going through this journey that we've been walking them through here today.
And so many men have replaced God or have replaced even the highest expression of themselves with objects, right? Or whether it's a material object, whether it's literally a Bugatti or the $25 million home on the water or the business being successful, whatever it is, right? That we've replaced God with these achievements, like when I get to this or when I get that or when I have this, then. And man, I gave up on God a long time ago. I remember the moment that I did. I was like, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I remember where I was and how it happened and the things that I said. I was between the ages of 6 and 8. I'm 44 now, and I've only most recently, really come back. There was a period of time there in my 30s I came back to God, but then I let God go again, and I've only recently come back. And it is very humbling, man, to give, especially when you feel that you're very adept and capable. I feel like I'm a very adept, capable person. Feel very strong in my constitution, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all of that. And it's very humbling to say, I don't got it. And I don't know where I'm going right now with certain areas of my life and certain paths. And to give that to God and the pain that comes with admitting that, just owning, like, I'm stuck right now. And it is very humbling, man. But I think it's also part of our own rites of passage as men. You know, we have multiple rites of passage, I believe, in initiations as human beings on this planet throughout our life, many. And one of them for men is a surrender to a higher power. Not just for men, for all of us. I think it presents a little differently though in men and women. And for men, it is not giving up or giving away our power. It's giving to God. There's a very subtle distinction. It's giving in the sense of I'm about to walk into an abyss and I trust that I'm held. And the only way you can really trust that you're held is to also trust yourself. And there's a synonymous nature or a synonymous interplay between God and self. And I don't mean that from an egoic place. I mean that from a place of really deep, profound empowerment. Again, that many of us are unwilling to let go of because we define our worth, our value, our power through the things that we've done, the things that we've accumulated, the goals that we've achieved. And all of that, man, you know, when our health is at the precipice of ending or life is taken from us in certain ways with people that we love or even with ourselves, all of that shit just falls away. All of it for most people. And so there's a humility in coming into the unknown, into the mystery and saying, I don't got this. Please take it for me.
I love that, man. You know, I think much like you, I wrestled for a long time because I felt strong, capable, all the things that you listed. And it was like, I don't need that because I saw men that were in the church or had a relationship with God as like weak, right? Physically, I'll call it like it is, right? It just wasn't a model of what I wanted to be. So I was like, why do I want to go follow that? But the turning point came for me, just like you said, it was like, I don't have this. Take this from me. And there's been an element of peace in my life ever since. It doesn't mean it doesn't still have challenges and stress. But at the end of the day, I believe it's in his hands, and I'm doing my best to follow what he has for me. So this has been beautiful, Steph. I appreciate the work and the wisdom and everything that you shared. Talk to us about your new book real quick. Tuned in and turned on, and the guys out there that are connecting with this conversation, what value, what they can expect to maybe grabbing a copy of that. We'll have a link down there for the guys.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's my wife actually came up with the title, which I really love the title. The publishing house liked the title as well, hence why they ran with it. You know, with a publisher, they usually make most of the bigger decisions anyway. Got to really fight for the ones that you want. But lucky we were all agreed there. But it's really about attunement. The title is about tune into yourself, and every area of your life actually turns on. Tune in honestly to yourself. And the book is an exploration of helping you attune to yourself and who you really truly are, not the facade, the mask, the bullshit that you wear. And so 3 parts to the book: that inner healing, understanding why you are the way you are, making those connections, and then really providing tangible tools in how to help you be a better human that prepares you for more optimized relationships, intimate romantic partnerships, but intimate relationships, all the ones that are the most important to you. And how the healthy vehicle of relationship brings us to the third part, which is a deepening with God and a deepening with yourself. And that healthy relationship, and the book shares how to do this with lots of, I've been working with people for 25 years, lots of case studies, lots of client stories, real relatable stories and tools there to help you. How being in a healthy relationship is the fastest vehicle actually to God, and to surrender and humility, and why that's actually important, how that optimizes all of your life. That's the essence of the book. And there's definitely talk about shame and addiction and compulsion and the things that men have to deal with. There's masculine, feminine components too. There's a whole chapter on masculine, feminine, men and women. So it's powerful. Oh, I could tell you where to get it from. Sorry. Yeah. Tuned in and turned on book.com. And there's a stack of bonuses that are still available, ordering it through there. You can order it through Amazon, wherever you want to order it from. And I suggest getting the audio book, because I actually say, I read it out myself, but I say a lot more in that because I read it like a year after I wrote the book. And there was just so much more growth that I'd had in that year. So I just added a stack of stuff in there as well. So there's even more bonuses in the audio.
Yeah, incredible. Guys, we'll have that plugged down. And obviously, Steph, your accent, I'm sure, makes the book hit so much harder. Your words sound so much more wise. And
I have the same perception about you and my accent. Anyway, that's such an interesting conversation.
I love it, guys. Tuned in and turned on. We'll have it plugged down there in the show notes for all you guys. Last and final question, Steph. This has been an incredible conversation. I asked you this, what it would have been almost 6 years ago. So probably answers a lot different if you even remember being asked. But the title of our show is called The Superhuman Life. Our goal is to give the guys the tools to level up in the 5 key areas of their life. But I love to get the guest takes. So in the frame of the conversation we've had here today, Steph, how would you define living a superhuman life?
It's just one word, man. Truth. Just honestly, man. Be honest with yourself. And look, I put my hands up here. Like, I'm not always honest with myself. Therefore, I'm not always honest with the world and with others. It's a work in motion. Honesty, man. The truth shall set us free. Like, that shit brings tears to my eyes. That's how palpable truth is, man. Truth is everything. And it is the hardest thing to touch because it is fucking scary for so many different reasons. Sure, that's a podcast exploration for another time, but truth, man, just be as honest as you can with yourself as often as you can.
Yeah. It's core value one, pillar one in the rebuilt man is truth is the beginning of all transformation. So I love it. Steph, as always, appreciate you. Guys, check out the book, Tuned In and Turned On, plugged down in the show notes below. As always, if you got value out of this episode, make sure to rate, review. Most importantly, though, share this one with a friend, with a brother out there that needs to hear this conversation. Do us the favor and him the blessing. But we love you guys. We'll see you in the next one.